Welcome to the Streaming Our Stories, or SOS podcast, where we use this platform to promote Cela Arts Fest vendors like Chile Herrera. Why don't you tell us your name and what part of Cela you rep?
My name is Julie Hernandez. I am one half of Chile Herrera, and I actually represent Linwood, which is where I grew up.
Well, why don't you tell us about your product and what you make, and I'll pull up the photos you sent while you chat about that.
We are an artisan hot sauce. Everything is made from scratch. We make every single batch to order. It is a spicy sauce that is not really just made to be on totopos or chips, but really it's something that we've made to really enhance whatever food it's mixed with, or it's poured on, or whatever marinated in it.
I know that you specifically said that it's not just a food to be used with chips and salsa, right? That was something we had a conversation. Mm-hmm. So if you could just dive in a little more to that, like it's artisan and it has multi-purpose. And so what's that all about?
Yes, no, of course. So I think typically when we think of a salsa, either an Americanish, salsa fresca, or even just salsa like what our grandmother would make. Because we tend to have it at restaurants often, we just kind of pour it on a chip or we dip it. But for our sauce, it really is a waste of sauce. It's going to taste good. It's going to be hot. It's going to enhance the chip. But really, it's such a multifaceted sauce that you want to maximize it. We love to marinate anything in it, really. Sometimes I marinate potatoes and tofu, but it's definitely good, obviously, on every type of meat. And then that broth, we end up using the broth as well to then use it. We freeze it and use it later for additional cooking. We mix it into hummus, into mayonnaise, ketchup, marinara sauce, anything really that it gets mixed with. It adds a very smoky, obviously spicy flavor, but it also just gives everything so much body. So because it can do so much, just putting it on a chip kind of does it a little bit of a disservice.
When you were describing it, it sounded like the super glue of salsa, 101 uses and counting.
I love that. Yes, I love that. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yes, it kind of binds everything firmly together.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Why don't you tell me your story, or the story of Chile Herrera? How did it start? Why do you make salsa? How did you get into vending?
Yes.
Tell me your whole life story. And this is going to be open-ended, so take your time to go as deep as you want. Yeah.
I grew up in a family where food and eating was such an important part of the way that we bonded and the way that we related to each other. And it had so much to do with really positive sharing, and also just sharing that food with others. I love to feed people. And Manuel grew up the same way, where they would even have like cooking competitions with each other, and everyone would vote on who had made the best salsa or the best wings or whatever it was, right? So food being so important to both of us, it was actually something that brought us together. And he was already making this salsa when I met him, and he's taken about a year and a half to 2 years to really perfect it. And so when I met him, he was just sharing it with people that he knew at work or friends, and people were buying it off of him and setting their own price for it, even though he didn't want to accept anything for it. And when he shared it with me, I was like, why aren't more people using this? Because when I used it at home, just to put it in some soup, just to put it in some beans and some eggs, it was phenomenal what it was able to do for that mouthful. So he was a little bit hesitant about it at the beginning, but once I told him how easy it would be to begin and how fun it would be, but then when we had this beautiful, beautiful conversation about where we come from, right? Being from Linwood, and knowing our community, knowing the needs that our community has. He grew up in Long Beach, but also knowing, that type of demographic that could really use a lot of inspiration and support and funding. I was like, can you imagine if Chile Herrera is able to make it to a point where we have all of this excess income, where we can actually go back into our community and give that back and feed or support or fund whatever need we find close to our heart. I was like, it would be phenomenal. And so, really, that was the one thing that allowed us to really go forward. So, whenever it is that we sell any type of sauce, whatever size, we've honestly, and I'm not saying this because I'm on camera, we do it with such a big smile. Like, we get so excited to have that connection and then to have people understand what the sauce does, and then personally what the sauce is going to allow us to do. At this point, we're still just funding the project. There isn't anything that we really keep for ourselves except for perhaps some gas or, like a
Right.
meal if we're delivering and we're super hungry. But it's all going back to that to try to make it grow as fast and as best as it can, so that we can get it to that point where we are hopefully giving back as soon as possible to our people.
No, that's great. It's a beautiful story, and I think that is one of those. Well, first of all, you're the first food vendor I've had. So all the other
Oh.
vendors have been artisans or artists. The closest it got was like some beauty products, that are plant based and handmade. So
Oh.
that's something that's a little bit more. It's not so much art, but I feel like
Right.
food has like that connection, that smile you talked about has such
Got it.
personal, it's like intimate, right? People eat it, they share it with their families. It's a different type of vibe, I think. And so
It's
just hearing you
true.
talking about that is great. So, and I think also
Absolutely.
the the journey and the process of like making something just for the love of it and
Mhm.
having the market tell you, hey, this needs to be a product.
Yes.
That's also like super genuine, right? So I think those are the two things that
Mhm.
stood out to me most about the story.
Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to piggyback on two things that you mentioned, one, there is definitely art in cooking. We all know that there is artistry in that, but I think you're right in that. Bringing people together, being able to create an experience, either culinary or an experience where everyone is together enjoying something and being able to feel that moment of joy and pleasure and nourishment and connection. There is so much art in that as well. And it's almost like you're creating a performance piece. It's like performance art in a way. Do you know what I mean? So there's at so many levels, I think you do find that artistry when it comes to cooking.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I do event planning, or at least I used to before, the pandemic. So that whole bringing people together and creating experience, like I relate to that,
Yes.
and that's why I feel like I
Yes.
saw that, like, yeah, even if people are just wasting the sauce on a chip, right? To have friends around a bowl of chips and to be able to have spark conversation, and it is still that bringing people together and creating performance art and a moment and
Mhm.
just like sharing that, and it's like all about sharing, which is beautiful, and the fact that you want to give back and all that is great.
Yes.
So this has
It's
been
it's
a
a big thing.
super awesome conversation. We're a little bit over, but I still want to give you a chance to just shout out your Instagram, or if you have any new
Yes, of course.
products, anything that you know is going to be coming out soon, and where people can
Mhm.
find all that stuff. Yeah, here's your moment. Go for it.
Okay, perfect. So we will be having a new sauce coming out in the next few weeks. We already have the non-vegan version available, but we're creating and perfecting the vegan version to make sure that it tastes exactly the same. And it's going to be a white sauce. Really, it's more like light pink, but it's spicy still, not as spicy as Chile Herrera, but it's going to be something that can go on everything as well, but in a different way. We'll be putting up recipes. Our first culinary video will be up in just a few days. By the time that this is going on, the video will all be up. But we'll be having a few more culinary videos up, and you can find us via Instagram at chile.herrera. And you can also find us on Facebook under the same chile.herrera.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will put all links to anything. If you want to send me any links, I put them all in the description of the show so folks can find them.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Streaming Our Stories. Make sure to join us for the next one as we bring you Sella Arts Fest vendors, organizers, and all types of updates in the region. Thank you again, and have a good one.